Some people call the 21st century the borderless age. New technologies make doing business across U.S. state lines as easy as if in your own backyard. Unfortunately for CPAs, practicing outside the state in which you are licensed is not always that easy.
We're really talking about that temporary practice privilege, meaning the opportunity to come into a state that is not your normal home state or a place where you have an office and be able to take care of client needs.
Most states have their own set of requirements for out-of-state CPAs, including prior notification of your intent to provide services in a state. Originally known as substantial equivalency or Section 23 of the Uniform Accountancy Act, this common model was developed nearly 10 years ago by the American Institute of CPAs and the National Association of State Boards of Accountancy.
The original goal of substantial equivalency was to provide mobility for CPAs to move from state to state with what became known as simple notification. Each state has added on different forms, fees, and processes which have turned it into something that has just been totally unworkable.
The requirements were intended to provide state boards of accountancy with a means to protect the public by overseeing the actions of CPAs within a state.
Yeah, public protection really has two sides to it. Number one is the side of a state board's requirement to regulate the industry, to investigate when something bad happens. The other part of public protection is ensuring that the citizens, that the consumers of the profession have the ability to use the CPA that they want.
The challenge that we have with the system right now requires that many times you give significant notice in order to come in for a short period of time, let alone, again, signing a state income tax return.
A uniform national mobility system is critical to our firm and I think to all practicing CPA firms. More and more we operate even in a global world, certainly a national world. Our practices extend beyond our states, even though we may never leave our office building.
Recognizing the escalating need for mobility, the profession has come together with a renewed push to implement a revised Section 23 with a crucial difference. No longer would a state's regulatory authority need to be notified every time an out-of-state CPA conducted business in their state. However, an out-of-state firm would be required to obtain a limited firm permit under certain circumstances. Under this new provision, both the CPA and the CPA firm would agree to the automatic jurisdiction of the state.
There's a myth out there that somehow or another states have been against this in some way. They're not. What they're concerned about is whether or not there will be adequate enforcement and effective enforcement under the mobility provisions.
Uniform adoption of the revised Section 23 will create a process similar to the nation's driver's license system. It will provide CPAs with mobility while strengthening the state board's ability to protect the public interest.
I was at first a little concerned because I felt like, how are we protecting the public by doing away with certain procedures? But in researching this act and in talking to other states that have considered this act, I realized that by getting rid of procedures, we're actually freeing up resources to focus more on enforcement.
In April of 2007, Tennessee became the first state to enact the newly revised Section 23 legislation.
This is House Bill 1919, Senate Bill 443.
We're very excited about being the first state to enact the revised Section 23 of the Uniform Accountancy Act. We, quite frankly, had a very short timeline from the time the Uniform Act was amended or the exposure draft was adopted in December to our legislature convened in January.
We had this opportunity through the great work of the people in Tennessee to actually get the new concept enacted in law in Tennessee, and their leadership produced a tremendous result. And I think in the next few years we'll look back and say this was really the beginning of the new momentum to having it enacted in all states.
Engaging the right legislators at the right time is critical.
It was easy for me to handle a piece of legislation like this because it's pro-business, obviously, and Tennessee's a pro-business state.
We identified a key Democrat in the House and a leading Republican in the Senate that carried the bill for us, which enabled us to focus on the respective commerce committees instead of spreading our key contact program among the entire legislature.
True mobility for CPAs nationwide requires each state's adoption of the newly revised Section 23.
It's important to me to know that the other states are working toward doing the same thing, because in order for it to work properly, you got to all work together.
The concept that we're trying to build here is that if we get this enacted in all states, we'll all have done it for each other.
Collaboration among state boards of accountancy, state CPA societies, CPAs across the country, NASBA, and the AICPA has propelled forward the possibility of nationwide mobility legislation for CPAs.
We're not often all on the same page on an issue, and just by the nature of our organizations, we sometimes have conflicting roles. But in this case, everyone's reached an agreement that this was an important effort.
All of us working together have presented a uniform, committed, consistent front to our state boards of accountancy and to legislators, and I think that's been very important.
Well, I think it's going to allow our profession to be more responsive to our clients and our clients to be more easily served.
As technology increases the ease with which CPAs serve their clients across borders, so too must the profession step up its efforts of obtaining a unified national mobility system.
Recognizing that we have the best opportunity we've ever had to get something done, it's going to be important for people to take the tough road and lead in this area rather than wait and hang back.
Capitalizing on available resources of the collaborating organizations and the momentum created by states already enacting mobility legislation will provide a much-needed catalyst for this effort.
We're very grateful to the states of Virginia, Ohio, Missouri, as well as Wisconsin, and it has given us some momentum that we need to continue, and it's one that I'm confident we can if we can just get legislation introduced in each state.